Tech Reimagined, redefining the relationship between people and technology. Brought to you by Endava. This is Tech Reimagined.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of Tech Reimagined. I'm Bradley Howard. We're now in season 2, where it's all about answering the most burning questions related to the way that technology influences our everyday lives. We have a special guest joining us today with Brian McBride. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. What am I doing currently? So I chair Trainline, the booking app that hopefully you use to buy your train tickets whenever you're going to be traveling again. We went public a couple of years ago, and it's been a pretty hot year for us with the pandemic. I'm also on the board of the British-based asset management company Standard Life Aberdeen. And I'm on the board of a Swedish investment company called Kinnevik, and they own shares in companies like Babylon and Zalando and Tele2. I'm also an advisor to Scottish Equity Partners, and I'm the lead non-executive director on the board of the Ministry of Defence. Prior to that, my career is very much threaded through a tech lens. I was chief executive of Amazon in the UK from 2006 to 2011. I ran T-Mobile, I worked for IBM, I worked for Dell, I worked for Xerox, and I've also chaired ASOS and been on the board of AO and a few other digital companies. So that's me.
So today we're going to be discussing the role of artificial intelligence and machine learning when it comes to all things digital, and especially around digital disruption. So let's start off with, some people are obviously worried that AI and machine learning are going to take away their jobs. What's your view on how this technology can actually help us?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it will take away some jobs, and I think it will create some jobs. I'm not making out that it's a balance and it's easy peasy, but some jobs will go and some jobs will arrive. 10 years ago we never had data scientists. We didn't know what that was all about. 10 years ago we weren't, having people trained in cyber and stuff like that. So I think tech brings new opportunities and it helps eliminate things as well. If you look at the sort of jobs that have been eliminated by, let's say, tech in general over the past 10 years, they have been routine, repetitive, administrative, boring jobs. And when you look at what, robotic process automation and some of these trends have done, they've just automated and therefore made faster, better, cheaper things that it took an army of human ants to do before. So yes, the jobs will go, but the jobs that will go will not be the high-end jobs. If you think about machine learning and artificial intelligence, look at it. Let's say brain scans. So you can train the machine to look at brain scans, and it will pick out where tumors are, where breakages are, where fractures are, much better than the human eye can. What is the output of that? The output of that is a clean binary diagnosis that person A has got a particular condition, and that's what the machine has done. But then what happens is you have the human, you have the surgeon, who's then going to decide what you do with that information. They're going to then prescribe treatment. They're probably going to carry out that treatment, albeit with the help of some robotics. So again, I think AI and big data is not about one or the other. It's how do humans learn to work with machines, and how do machines make humans much more productive, and hopefully at a faster rate. So this is a partnership, I think, between the humans and the machines. I read all of these doomy, gloomy stories about the machines taking over the world, and the machines running the next war, etc. I hope it doesn't come to that. I don't think it will, because you can take that very black view of life. I think in the main that all of the automation we're seeing just now is for the good. And when you look at what it's doing, especially in areas like medicine and science, it's phenomenal. We would not have got the vaccines that we've got today in the time that we've got today without a lot of global coordination, but B, without the ability to sequence genomes and use big data.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think that AI and machine learning can help us navigate through the pandemic?
Well, I think they already have. I think that's what all of the scientists were using, to sequence the different versions and strains of the bug, and then to come out with, we're seeing the tip of the iceberg. We're seeing today in the UK what we qualified 3 different vaccines. There's probably 7 or 8 globally that have been qualified. There were probably 50 or 100 candidates, and they all started, farming the same huge amount of data about people had caught this and what the characteristics were, what the symptoms were, and then breaking it down to the actual genome itself of the virus. So I think that all of these technologies have come together and they've brought this vaccine to us, much faster than anyone would have contemplated, 2 or 3 years ago.
AI and machine learning requires lots of data in order to provide better results. What do you think the role is that technology can do in order to gather that data from across organizations?
Well, I think, yeah, the data is there. It's becoming much more meaningful, much more actionable, with some of the technologies that we've got out there at the moment. And you'll find it with things like, the mobile phone itself. It is capturing and throwing off lots of data, from customers, from people about what they like, what they don't like, what they look at, what they don't look at. And so it's giving you, the company, the ability to kind of take that data, process it, and turn it back around where it becomes a way of making the customer's life better or easier. But I'll give you a couple of examples. When I was in the online fashion business, the big difference between the physical high street fashion retailer and the online one was that the online players, Boohoo and ASOS and people like that, they know much more about their customers than any department store does. So it's about data, big data sciencing, and putting it to work. And all of the great digital companies today, they're all data driven. They do not make gut feel, intuitive decisions. Oh, I think we might do this. I think we might do that. Everything's about data. Everything is A/B tested before you do it. And you've got to prove that you've moved the needle before you do something. In Amazon, you wouldn't change the color of a button or the placing of the button or the pixel or anything unless you data that said this will either make it faster for the customer or better or cheaper. And when I think back to my time in fashion, think about an online fashion retailer. You get 20 million customers and you've got 100,000 SKUs. That's almost like the biggest spreadsheet in the world. And no human mind would really be able to kind of do much with that. And so that's where you use that data to give yourself the ability to do what we call personalization and discoverability. And so through machine learning, ASOS, for instance, they created a kind of recommendation engine that understood the relationships between information that the human mind cannot compute because it's just too complex or it involves processing too much data. So their system could look at all of the interactions over the past 12 months between customers and products. And the software would train itself to estimate the likelihood any given customer will view a product, save it, add it to its bag, or buy it. And so it's dealing with billions of rows, it's millions of columns, and trying to just narrow that down to 4 or 5 smart recommendations that you could give to that customer about what jeans to buy, what bag to buy, what jacket to buy. That means that they're more than likely to click on it and buy it. And we're getting back to the humans versus machines. And I think what we say is that artificial intelligence won't necessarily beat humans, but humans working with artificial intelligence will certainly outperform humans working alone. So it's that ability to harness both.
And on some of the newer companies that you mentioned in the introduction before, can you see them using AI to help make decisions at a board level, maybe about M&A activity or some governance as well?
Well, I think what you need to have at board level is people who can understand the outputs. So I don't expect my fellow board members to be experts in machine learning or anything, but they have to understand where the data came from. What science was behind the recommendations, and if the board are saying we think you should buy company A because our data tells us that the market they're in is going this way or that way. That's what you look at around the boardroom table for. People in the board today have to be broad. They have to understand data. They have to understand digital, but they don't have to have written a line of code.
I've got a particularly topical question for right now. We're seeing some price inflation across industries due to shipping disruption and supply chain disruption. How do you think that technology can help play a part in overcoming this?
Well, I see quite a few disruptions today. We don't have enough drivers or anything either, because all of the EU drivers left, and we haven't trained up enough new HGV drivers because during the pandemic you couldn't sit in a cab with somebody. So I'm not sure these things are tech-based per se, and I don't know how much we could do in terms of, I do work with the MOD, so I see training in the RAF, for instance, and training in the Navy, there's a huge amount of simulation involved, and using great tech to get people experience of, landing in an aircraft carrier without actually having to do it. So I just don't know at the basic level, can we create a whole bunch of simulation training to allow us to address hotspots like, not enough HGV drivers or whatever skill it has to be that we're looking for.
And finally, have you got any last thoughts about anything else to do with the AI and ML or database decision making that you're seeing in the companies that you work in at the moment?
I would just say to people, look, it's not going to go away. Don't be frightened of it. Dive in there, embrace it, use it. The great thing about machine learning is you don't need to have a huge data reservoir to get it working. You can get machine learning to work with a small data set. So experiment with it, play around with it, because the more you can play around with it, the more you can set queries and add to the data, the more iterative it gets, the better it gets, and that's the whole point about machine learning. It keeps iterating, it keeps learning, and so the sooner you start, the sooner you'll get really good outputs from it.
Thank you, Brian. As always, that's been really inspiring. To all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in today, and we hope to see you again soon. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Tech Reimagined, the Endava podcast, or you can contact us by going to endava.com and filling in the contact form. Until next time, have a great week.
Tech Reimagined. Redefining the relationship between people and technology. Brought to you by Endava. This is Tech Reimagined.